Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy Smith and welcome to episode number 32 of the Rambler podcast, where we are passionate about sharing what makes Cathedral Prep the standard of excellence. On this episode of the podcast, we are thrilled to have Therese Brown as a guest. Therese grew up outside of New York City and developed a love for running with her father. While in high school, she was a two-time New York state champion and All-American in the 1500 meter and the NYS Gatorade Track Athlete of the Year. She graduated with a history degree from Dartmouth College in 1990. While there, she was captain of the cross country and track teams and earned NCAA Division I All-American honors in the 3,000 meter run. After college, she competed for the Adidas Boston Athletic Association team from 1990 to 1995. During those years, she was able to train with some of the top athletes and traveled around the United States to compete at meets, including several USA National Championships, as well as the 1992 Olympic Trials. A fun factoid about Coach Brown is that she ran the New York City Marathon at just 11 years old, the youngest girl to ever do so. Therese became the head coach for the Villa Maria Academy cross-country team in the fall of 2010. As Victors and now Ramblers, her teams have captured 10 of the past 11 District 10 AA team titles, and in 2022 were crowned state champions for the fourth time in program history, having also won in 2014, 2015, and 2016. In addition to the team accomplishments, 15 Villa Prep runners have won individual state medals, placing in the top 25 finishers in the state, and 3 have been individual District 10 champions. Her team has had 23 runners named to the first team All-District 10 team, 52 named to the first team All-Region team, and 45 named to the second team All-Region team. This past year, Coach Brown became the head coach of the Cathedral Prep boys and girls track and field program, as well, which competes in both the winter and spring seasons. From 2011 to 2022, she was the assistant coach working with the middle distance and distant runners at both Villa Maria Academy and Cathedral Prep. During those years, her athletes have set school records in almost every middle distance and distance event: the 400 meter, 3200 meter, 4x4, and 4x8. Her middle distance athletes currently hold 6 District 10 records and have won 36 District 10 track and field titles, which include 17 relays and 19 individual titles. The Villa 4x800 relay has won 2 AA state titles and finished in the runner-up spot twice. From this previous indoor track season for 2023, the girls 4x1 mile relay finished 6th at the Nike Indoor Nationals, earning All-American honors. 14 student athletes of the middle and distance squads have gone on to compete at the D1 level, with many others continuing to compete at the District 2 and District 3 levels. Reading all this, all I can say is pure dominance here. This is awesome stuff. Her husband Mike, who she met at Dartmouth, also coaches with her at Prep. Together they have been blessed with 6 children: Claire, Villa class of 2016, Grace, Villa class of 2018, Andrew, Prep class of 2021, Luke, Prep class of 2023, and Ann Catherine, Prep class of 2026. Coach Brown, we're thrilled to have you on the podcast.
Thanks.
Welcome.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I tell you what, between cross country, track and field, your background coaching, I love reading the backgrounds of people before they come on officially, so our listeners have an understanding of who you are and, you know, the accomplishments you've had, because it's really impressive.
Well, thanks. It's kind of a little different hearing it, right?
Yeah.
And reflecting on it, so.
And I'm sure as a coach, you have the perspective of just, you know, year after year, you're just focused on that season, right? You're not reflecting back on the years so much as you are looking forward to the season ahead.
Yeah, always looking forward, but I think what's particularly neat about our program, and I'd say just continuously from Villa to Prep, is that there really is a legacy and a culture that I think we're all aware of, like in the program, that it's sort of a gift and that we are aware of the past, but the past is the past. You know? And there's kids on the team now who were 2 years old when some of the kids on the team that I coached before were running. So, always looking forward, of course.
And I have 4 kids, as we were talking about before you came on, and all the accomplishments I'm reading off, and at the end there, 6 kids on top of that. I mean, just amazing.
Yeah, they keep us running.
Literally. Yeah. Oh, that's good stuff. So, guess question I have for you to kind of start off on the podcast is that, in your bio, I was reading about how, you were sharing how you developed a love for running, with your father. And then, by high school, you were a state champion. Can you share with us what led you becoming such a successful and competitive runner from those early years, you just running with your dad, to then now by high school, you're a state champion?
Yeah, so I had the privilege, and this dates me for sure, of growing up in the New York City area in the running boom. So I was a kid during the 70s, and that was like Fred Lebow was really pushing the New York City Marathon and growing it, and it was just those crazy running years. And my dad sort of got caught up in that, and now when I reflect back, I'm like, it's kind of cool that he encouraged us. I mean, my brother and I ran together, and we just did it on our own. But he always welcomed us to run with his friends.
Yeah.
So I think back, I'm like, man, if I were in my 40s going out for a run with my friends, would I invite my 10-year-old kids to come along? We didn't always keep up. We just kind of did our own thing. But we were always welcome to try to run. And then if we wanted to race, he would just say, you just have to train properly. Just can't run a race, you get hurt. But it was just a weird time in the history of running in this country, I think, and we sort of got caught up in it. And there were no age barriers, right? Now you can't run a marathon until you're 18 or 16, but you could do whatever you wanted back in the late 70s, early 80s. And so we got really excited about, like, hey, maybe we can run the marathon. And so, yeah, that in terms of like road running, and it kind of became a year-round thing. But where I grew up in New York, we also had a very strong CYO track program. So every kid in first grade ran track. Sort of like in Erie, everyone does UISA, right? Everyone did track. And so it just created this culture of running. And I guess I was just fortunate, blessed with some gifts so I could run pretty fast. And I wasn't really very athletic otherwise. I think I was probably like tried out for lots of teams and just wasn't coordinated enough. And so for running, I could do it. And I think that, and again, I grew up in a family with 6 kids. I was the 4th. So we were pretty competitive, they kind of always had to fight for what you wanted. And so I think that just sort of like, I could run fast enough, and that competitiveness just kind of inspired me. So, and then I just kept running, like I kind of became part of my identity, and went to high school, and I was really very, very blessed to have, in my own hometown, one of the best high school coaches, most influential high school coaches in the country, who started a lot of like national level stuff, and there he was at my high school. So he really just took me to a whole other level, and that was great. And so it opened up opportunities for me to keep doing it. So
seems like there was a lot of different things that kind of came together for you that allowed you to do that, right? Like you said, your dad, the influence of your siblings, right?
For
having the right culture within the city of New York that you were running in.
Yeah, and it was just different than now because there weren't so many distractions. There wasn't very much club sports. No one's doing stuff from their really young year round. It just wasn't. And so I was actually kind of weird, if you'd say. Like, most of my friends weren't doing what I was doing, and sometimes I have to leave a birthday party if I say I have to go for a long run. And that was a little bit weird, but it also taught me about like sacrifice. If I wanted to do something badly enough, I had to be willing to kind of say no, or like, well, I'll do some of it but not all of it, right? So it just kind of was good character forming, I think, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I'm sure many of the lessons that you learned through those years doing it yourself, you're teaching your kids, you're teaching your players, you're doing everything that has led to the success you've had.
I think so.
The lessons you've learned, right?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. You just kind of like take what others have given you, and then it kind of, without realizing it.
Right,
You're passing it down to the next.
And then later on, you went on to compete for the Olympic trials, and you were running for the Adidas Boston Athletic Association. What were some of the most memorable times for you during those years of your career running?
Well, that was neat because I ran in college, and I wouldn't say I was like really thrilled with my college running experience. It was fine. It kind of came in with higher expectations than I was able to realize. So when I finished college, I really was fortunate to be able to hook on with this club. It was coached by this coach named Bob Seveny, who was really amazing. He coached like Joan Benoit when she won the Olympic marathon. Like he's coached lots of Olympians. So I was very fortunate because I was not that caliber of a runner, and but he was great. And so I was able to be on this team. So every day I was around like people that I'd look at and be like, wow, this is crazy. And then as being part of that team, being able to travel to, we traveled all over the United States for meets, for national championships, for team championships, and yeah, so like, I mean, I was not going to ever make an Olympic team, but to be at the meet where I'm watching the Olympic team be chosen and they're on the same track, they're in the same races, I'm like, this is very cool.
Wow.
So very humbling because it certainly was like, oh my goodness, you know, you could be a big fish in a little pond and then quickly become a very tiny fish in a big pond. But yeah, I would say that was just really opportunities I never would have had in life, right? To just meet people and to be exposed to people who, wow, have really done it. Like, you know, like they're really having the success that everyone dreams of. And it was, yeah.
Well, and it's so cool, too, when you commit your life to a sport like you did and through all those years, and now you're associating with the people that, I mean, you're probably looking up to some of these people now to an extent, right? That you're being able to be there, rub shoulders with, and
absolutely.
be friends with.
That was really wild, you know, because when I was running, that was back when like Jackie Junior Kersey and like, I mean, Carl Lewis, you know, you read these and you're like, wow, there's Carl Lewis on the starting line, you know, this is, what am I doing at this meet, right? But that was really cool. And I think probably I wish then I appreciated it more, because when you're there, you kind of feel like, oh my gosh, nothing I'm doing is very good, because you're comparing it to what you're seeing all these other people, and I think, well, I wish I had appreciated what I did, because I certainly could never do it now. But it was an amazing experience, and I'm grateful to have been able to do that and have been given that opportunity.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
So now, part of your bio, and when I was reading it, you became the Villa head coach. But what even led you to Erie? Like, how did you end up in this great city?
Lots of things you never prepare for in life or plan for. But my husband teaches at Penn State Barron, so that's what brought us here. But he actually turned this job down because we were like, I don't want to move to Erie. I really wanted to move somewhere warm. You know, we were living in State College, and we had 2 little kids, and they said, I don't want to have to like dress them up to go outside in the winter. It's just, you got little kids.
Oh yeah, so I get it.
I said, I want to live somewhere warm, and you know, we came up here, and I was like, I think we were thinking about going to Texas, and then he turned it down, and then it really was like really through prayer, I would say that for sure, because we really were just kind of praying for peace where we were supposed to be, and I felt like that is like God works in a funny way, because I just have had this total change of heart that we should be going to Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm like, that is a miracle, because it was a miracle. It was, right? But, you know, in retrospect, it's where we're supposed to be, and I'm grateful. So it all worked out, because then the director at the school called and said, would you ever reconsider if we gave you in? And it's like, yeah, that is where we're supposed to be. So here we are, almost 22 years. And
wow.
22 years, I think, and great. It's been a great place to be. So.
And then the Villa job, like, when did you first hear about that? How did that all come about?
So that's crazy. That's crazy. So I had no intention of coaching. It wasn't even on my radar, because I had 6 kids at the time. I was homeschooling my oldest kids, and Michael was 2 months old. And my neighbor, Kate Tullio, who's across the street, had 2 girls on the team and at Villa, and they had a coaching change. The coach was gone, like, I guess it was like the middle of September. And she came over and she's like, oh my gosh, like, the kids don't have a coach, and I don't know what to do. And she knew I ran. I went out the door running.
Little did she know.
She said, would you ever be, like, they're looking for somebody, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I've got this little baby, and I got all these kids, and I said, I got to think about it. And so I came in and talked to Bill Flanagan.
Yeah.
And I said to him, like, well, what are your expectations? Because my experience in this sport is always going to have high expectations, right? And he said, just get them through the season. And I said, five weeks. And he said, 5 weeks. I'm like, okay, you know, I'm going to have a baby with me all the time. I'm not staying over at night, you know. And of course, I was so fortunate, because I had these moms on the team who, there was a NICU nurse, and they were like, just give me the baby. So he had arms every meet, and he was with me all the time. And but I thought it was 5 weeks. And then, you know, Chet Moffitt was coaching track, and he's like, can you help out with track a little bit? And then before you know it, here we are.
Little did you know, you were getting
sucked into it year round. Yeah. So, yes, completely not anything that was on my radar at that point in life. So.
And now, was your mindset, I'm just going to help get through these 5 weeks, or were you thinking, like, next year I'm going to be coaching this team as well? I guess, when did that?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, I don't really know. I think certainly by the end of the season, because you could see kids starting to wake up a little bit. Yeah. I thought, like, wow. And I think even just right away, I think I might have even worked with them in the winter. We didn't have an indoor team per se, but Yeah, I think it probably just naturally came when,
I was gonna
it's
say.
relationship based, right? So you start creating these relationships with the kids, and yeah, and I guess I did, because then I ended up coming to open house when they did, in the fall.
Little did you know, you were already on the...
But the wheels are turning, right? Because then I knew that next year there was going to be a big group of kids coming in, and that there was a lot of talent in that group, so it was kind of exciting. And so gosh, I'd never thought about that, but I guess...
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, because it's funny how your circumstances led you to even being involved with the program from that season, and then it turned into what you've done now. That's just funny.
I know, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And time goes very quickly.
Yeah.
Like, really? Oh my gosh. It's like, yeah.
And when you were saying what you told Bill was, I got high expectations, this level. Yeah. My thoughts were, sign her up now, like you're good.
Well, I don't think I really said that to him, but I just didn't know this sport without having high expectations, right? Because that was just, so when he said, just get them through the season, which I guess they're just trying to, provide an opportunity for the kids on the team.
Well, and what a great
spot for you. Come on, like, they do more than that, They deserve more than that, so.
Well, and what a great spot for you to land between Villa for all the years you've led that team. I know you've helped with the prep side too, with the boys and girls for both teams through the years. And I mean, just from our culture already, for you coming into this and you being able to set up the team in the way you have to be able to create the success you've had, it's really amazing. And those early years for you then, as you're established, okay, you're the coach. What were those early years for you like as you were leading up to that first state championship in 2014 and building that new culture?
Yeah, I think that's the point, Jimmy. I think that was the most important thing, because when I came in, I remember being kind of shocked. I met with the girls. Villa used to have that little body shop room, like that's where the weights were, and we sat in there to meet. And I was looking at the schedule, and I said, well, it doesn't say the state meet on the schedule. And they're like, oh, we don't go to the state meet. So the one girl said, my sister used to be on the team. They went when I was 7 years old, which that was about right. And I said, well, right away I'm thinking, well, there's kids on this team who could maybe qualify, but if it's not even there as something to shoot for.
Yeah. So
I realized pretty quickly, and their practice schedule was a little bit strange. Like I said to them, like, you all need a watch for running, right? And they're like, we have our phones. And I'm like, okay. And there were all these little things that they kind of had to learn as they went. And so I did realize, like, really early on, it's just creating a culture. That would be the number one thing, and to meet them where they were, because it was going to be no good for me to say, like, come on, we want to be district champions.
Well, that's a great point, too.
No, like, we have to work. And I think I really commend that first class that came in, my first full season, where we prepared in the summer before the season. That would have been the class of 2014. And we had good runners on that team. And we actually, their freshman year, we made it to states as a team. And on that team, I think there were maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 freshmen.
Wow.
So they were like, the wheels were turning, and like, whoa, and we finished 6th. So I think they're like, wow. And it really was it was very intentional. We thought, by the time you're seniors, our goal is to win a state title.
Yeah.
And I remember saying that to Billy. I said, we're going to go 10, top 5, top 3, and then we're going to try to win. And he was like,
Yeah, right.
He's
like, sure.
But then we went 6, and then the next year we went 4, and then we went 3, and then we won. But it was really, that was a very intentional on the part of the girls who were on the team at that time. And they really created a culture that then the younger kids, they start doing the work for you, because then the younger kids came in and they saw the success, and they knew, okay, we have to be serious, and this is what it takes to get there. So
what did you see in those group of girls that you knew you could predict top 10, top 5, top 3, and win? What was the elements that was it based on your experiences through the year, seeing so many different runs? And
partly I would say, I knew we had talent. Like, you need talent, right?
Yeah.
And you need that. But the other thing I think is just really important in the team, and this is what I would say, like, even if I didn't have all the talent, give me pretty good talent, but with the culture, and in the culture it just means the importance of every person, right? It's really that, like, cultural belonging. Like, you are vitally important to this team, and it doesn't matter if you're the first runner or if you're the last runner. Like, everyone has a place, and they're very important to be part of it. They make us what we are. And I think that has always been something that's important to me, not just for me in relating to the kids, but for the kids to relate to each other. And so that has really been what has built the culture. And I've always said to them, I don't really care whose head is coming out of the jersey. It's the jersey. right? It's that was always Villa, and now it's Prep. That it's the team.
Yeah.
And I think from a coach's perspective, it can get a little risky, saying like, "Wow, well, you're wasting a lot of time focusing on the culture, and there's no JV in our team.
Right.
There are JV races and kids running
Sure.
because we can only put 7 in varsity, but we never call anyone on the team JV. Like, we are one team." And it took time to create that culture, but it's worth it, because when you get that and you get each kid recognizing, like, one, the dignity of their teammate, it doesn't matter if they're fast or not, and that they bring and contribute something to our collective greater good. When you get there, it makes the rest of it so much easier, because they work for each other, and so it took patience. It was like we first started, our goal was just to try to win the region. I don't know when the last time they won the region. I know we beat McDowell by a point, and everyone was going nuts, and I'm like, that was like really not, it wasn't a great race for anybody, but them or us, we might have beat them by a point, but it was a big thing, know, and I wasn't part of that culture to know that was a really big thing.
Right.
And
right.
So that was a goal, and then to get to go to districts and get second place, and that means we got to go to states. Like, that was incredible, And then in 2013, and this is still one of my favorite memories, and I try to go back to it often, is that we came in, we won our region, we won our district, and we came in 4th at states. And the kids we were so thrilled. We had sweatshirts made that on the back said, 1st in region, 1st in districts, 4th in states. And then later, though, like when we became state champions, I'm like, that's kind of embarrassing. Like, because we're not wearing that 4th in states. And they said, always wear that 4th in states to remember how special it was, because you can become very desensitized. Like, you can start not thinking it's so good anymore. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, so I always try to go back to that 4th in state. Like, it was really a joy and a thrill, and it was sort of the beginning of them seeing what they were trying to work for could happen. So.
And that's the point that you guys were starting that cultural shift where, yes, it was 4th in the state, but what it meant was so much more than what it represented.
Right, because 2 years before, states wasn't even on the schedule.
Yeah.
Right? And so it was really, but it's funny, because years later, and I kind of rotate out and get rid of some of the sweatshirts. We've got a lot of it, but that's one I'll never get rid of, because they said it takes you back to appreciate, the process.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to get a little lost in yourselves when it starts getting easier,
And it probably, after a while, I mean, you get a new group every year and a group leaving every year. So you constantly have to keep reinforcing that culture. So what things do you communicate to the team? Like, do you have your standard Theresisms that you kind of say with the team?
There are probably a lot of them. They could tell you better. But you're right. And so part of the culture, I can say, like, well, the kids kind of run it and they keep it moving, but there's something to be really aware of over the years, right? Like, when I started coaching, Facebook was like the new cool thing for the kids on the team, right? There was no Instagram, no TikTok, no Snapchat, none of that stuff. And so very little looking at social media for affirmation and approval. And just so many things are so different about, involved in this program once, and we were working as a mentor, and they're saying, well, you've got to remember what generation they're coming from. Like, I was working with millennials when I started coaching, and now I think this is maybe the last year, what is it, Gen Z, whatever we're in. Like, they're all different, and they've grown up in different times, and so it's really important to kind of keep in tune with what motivates these kids. It's very different than what motivated, and what pressures do they have on them, because that social media is like,
crazy.
I mean, there's some good, but it's like the devil's playground on some part, right? Because you have these young, impressionable kids who are, they're looking at it and they're comparing themselves constantly, and that's a whole other battle to fight against. So what I try to do with the culture on the team is, again, it goes back to the person, like the dignity of every single girl on the team, that they all belong, and that's like. Been reading these studies in the last few years about, we live in a time where people are really engaged in things, kids are involved in sports and all these activities, but the largest percentage of people ever will say that they don't feel like they belong. Even though they're in activities, they don't find that they belong. And I think that's the most important thing, is for someone to come onto the team and know, I would say, like, you have to be noticed,
Yeah.
You have to be named and you have to be known. So first I'm going to see you, even if you're the slowest kid on the team.
Yeah.
And I got to know your name because that's who we are.
Yeah.
And then I need to know about you. Like, I don't sit down and say, tell me about yourself, but I need to just take time to, like, talk to kids, right? And then they know that they belong on your team. And that's not done with, like, bad motive. That's just, like, this is how we should all live.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
As Christians, we should be attentive to the person in front of us. And it shouldn't be based on, oh, you're a really good runner. You know, as I say, like, you can have a team with great runners, but they'll graduate. And what are you left with? Right? So I think if you have a team that respects each other and puts the team above themselves, it brings out something greater in the athlete, in the person, and that will go on forever because that's your culture. And they're going to give you everything they have.
Right.
And some years that will be awesome, some years that will be pretty good, but they're still giving everything they have.
Well, that's a great point too, where the culture around the team is there's no individual bigger than the team.
Exactly, and even and even collectively, we're not bigger than the team.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah,
so no group right now, and, you know, we go through things. Sometimes, you know, there's little issues that come up on the team, and we kind of pride ourselves on being drama-free, but drama arises in teenage kids. And we'll always go back to that and say, you have been passed on this beautiful experience from really those girls back in the 2010, 11, 12, right? Who safeguarded this, and they made every effort to protect it, and they passed it on to you. And the future of this program deserves the same, and it's in your hands right now. And I think the kids will all say, yes, we recognize that that's more important than anything else. And, you know, the better the team gets, that's more challenging because this sport also attracts really competitive type A, intense-driven kids. So, you know, then you're trying to balance, like, well, they do get competitive with each other, but that's not encouraged. Like a healthy competition to push each other, but at the end of the day, for varsity, we can run 7 kids. And we might have 10 kids who could do it. And they'd be on varsity on every other team in Erie. Right.
And that's a tough thing for you as a coach and also within
the
team.
To grow and to say, like, I have a role, and they do have roles. That they're going to have their role at the day. If we get to states, they'll have a role there. But it won't be running. And they have to know that what they're bringing is just as important as the kids. And we always say that the bodies that are most capable of doing our best for our team will be on the starting line. It's not the name. It's And, you know, it's an interesting thing. I'm sure there might be some inner conflict sometimes with kids, but what you see is really a support of that and a support of each other. So I think that's really the heart of keeping it, you know, keeping perspective on what's most important.
Well, and I always appreciate, you know, you look at a coaching career like yours up to this point with the success you've had. It was early years, and last year you guys went to states again. So you've gone through so many different groups of kids, and like you said, now it's the different generation from millennials to Gen Z. It's not just coaching the X and O's of your sport. It's also knowing your players and how to create that culture that obviously creates the success you've had. It's really cool to hear the backstory of the things that go on to, you know, help develop that, because it doesn't just happen. It's not just you just showed up and you had a good team and now you won states. That's not how it works.
You know, and you can also say, like, you can, you know, learn, and that's the other thing I would say with coaching from my perspective is, you know, I started coaching, I had never coached before. You know, I'd run well, but I was blessed with good coaches, so I never had to think about why I was doing what I did. I just trusted them and I did it, which is how it should be, right? But so then I'm like, oh my gosh, I realized how much I didn't know. Like, well, why did we do those workouts at that time of year? Why do we, you know, what is the cycle, and how do you do this, and what do you do to do this, and how do you get better with this? And for every event, especially as you go into track, is completely different. And so I had a lot of learning to do, and I still have learning to do. Like, I'm constantly learning.
Absolutely.
But I think you can be book smart as a coach and know all the right training, and you can have all the right workouts. But I think that is only going to take you so far, because I think it's the other part, it's the human part, is that what's going to make those kids accomplish what they can. Forever, like to keep moving on. And I think that there's this great quote that I send to the kids every year. It says, running removes pretense, which is why those who run besides us become honored friends. And it's very true, because you're at your best and your worst in front of these kids. You know, and it's not social media, like everything looking good, right? I mean, you suffer, they see kids cry, they see kids disappointed, they see kids elated, and their teammates, and there's this bond that forms. I don't know how to explain it, and I don't know if it's unique to running because you're out there,
right,
like really pushing yourself all the time. And there's no timeouts, right? It's like, it's really hard, and in racing, you don't know where your teammates are.
Right.
You don't have a mirror, no one's telling you. You're doing it like knowing you've got to
just keep
moving, and you don't know what's going on behind you or in front of you. So I think that really, maybe it's just the sport lends itself to that, but I'm a firm believer in that, like the culture and the way we treat each other will get you so much further than, you need the workouts and you need the talent, but I think that without those other things, success will be short-lived.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Now, before we jump into talking about this coming season for you and the team, I was talking to somebody just recently, and they said, I don't know if it was a couple years ago, a year ago, when it was, but you gave an amazing talk for the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership, talking about how it relates to being a successful small business owner with a state champion, as a state champion cross-country coach, and they were just raving about how good it was, and this was some of the top leaders from the Chamber of Commerce that were in the room, and they just all, I guess, had a very strong message heard from you that resonated with them.
That's
so
good to know.
I was hoping, I was hoping that on the podcast you can just share a little bit about what message you gave, because I think, with the way I format the podcast, we want to talk about the people involved with prep and what's led to the success in their careers they've had. And so I'd love for you to just share a few of those things that you shared with that group.
So that was kind of a surprise. I think Chris Clark gave me a call, and of course his daughter was on the team, so he's like, this isn't track or cross country related or whatever. But what they were looking for is to try to, they were looking at team building, and so they thought, let's look at it from an athletics perspective, and then how then it can carry over to businesses. And I'm not in the business world, so I had no expertise there. But I think it really comes down to the same fundamental things. It's team, and it's working together as a group, and whether that's in a big, huge organization or a small business. So what I did is I just kind of shared the story of our program and how we started out and how the efforts made to build the culture and the lessons learned. So I think I highlighted three things. One was just creating a culture of belonging, which we've been talking about, right? And to make them know that they are all important and that they all have a role. And that's really true. I have some kids who, their greatest contribution might be that they get us very few points in the race, and few points in cross country are good. You want a few points. And then there's other kids who will never run a varsity race in their life, but I would never have the team without them, because what they bring as a person to the way they interact with each other and are like empathetic to other teammates, like that's a huge gift to the team. So they all need to know that there's a place for them, they belong, and also for their own, they're always going to have their own improvement as an athlete. So that was the first thing. The second thing then was kind of setting the stage for success. And I think that comes into being realistic about what you are. I think I said, I could have come in like, hey, let's try to be national champions. Well, that wasn't going to happen, right? Right now we're saying, well, we have this team, and the first thing we had to do is we should be practicing more than 3 days a week, and we need watches, right? And we should probably not walk when we run, right? So there are all these little things, and that's where we were. So to recognize that and say, but we're going to try to get better. And so on our team, some of the things we did is as we got a little better, as I mentioned, we won the region. And we would go to these, weekend invites, because in cross country, the dual meets they really aren't that important. Right? It's for the region score, for the paper, whatever. But really, it's the invitationals that prepare the kids for the big races. And there are local invitationals, and they're good. They're nice. And we went to them, and then we started doing really well at them. So like, okay, we can just keep winning these, or we're going to make it a little harder. So then we started going to Pittsburgh, and we going to like New York State or Ohio, like a little more competitive. And then eventually they started winning those, and like, okay, we were a AA team. And then I said, well, there's three classifications in cross country. And I said, okay, now I'm going to ask the meet directors if we can run in AAA, right? So every time they got better, I kind of pushed the envelope a little. And it meant that we might lose. And we did lose sometimes. And that's good. Because that's how we're going to stretch. And so I think that was it, like setting the stage for success. If we want to be there, if we want to go to the state meet and run with the best, we have to put ourselves in really difficult situations and learn how to compete under stress. And so that's what we did. And so I think that was what I was trying to say to them, like, within your business, like, know what you are. Don't have unreasonable expectations of your staff if they're not prepared, but keep stretching them. And that's what leadership is, like, to know how to stretch them, to respond, to read how they're dealing with it, right? And sometimes they'd be like, no, actually, we need to go. And over the years, we're like, we're not bumping up this year. We don't have that kind of team. And it's just being able to read instead of being like, no, we will always bump up. And no, we won't, because we just don't. These kids are different. And it's not the right thing for them. So is knowing that. And then the other thing I talked about is like learning from defeat, because, we built this great program. But if you follow it through, you'll see that we quickly fell off the radar, right? And so we're sort of in a rebuild like these years now. But I think that was a great lesson. It was a lesson to me, because those kids kind of come and go. But to say that, like, it's not a set it and forget it, right? Like, they're not a machine. And the team, as I mentioned before, they kind of run themselves. Well, that could be dangerous, because they are different kids. And then we got really big, because we were good. We had 36 girls on the team one year, which was really big, because we had won 3 state championships.
Right, yeah.
I'd like to be on a winning team.
Yeah.
But it was too big to get to know the kids. And I don't think I even had an assistant. I'm not sure if I had an assistant. Yeah. So it goes back to, like, do you feel like you belong here, or do you feel like you're just like one of many and you're not getting the attention? And so it was really, actually, I'd say, like, our low point as a team. And then we still finished 3rd in states, but we were on the way down, because that was what the older kids were kind of still giving us, but the younger kids weren't seeing that they had to have a role in that. They didn't really feel like it was probably their team. And then what happens? Well, they all graduated, and we're like, whoa, what happened? We just finished 6th at districts. How did that happen, right? This is, like, mortifying. We so far off from qualifying for states. And but in that, we were able to, like, for me, I could reflect and say, okay, where did I miss the boat? And that, okay, it's time to start over.
Yeah.
And we know the growing pains, and it just means patience and trusting the process and getting buy-in from the kids, and we were able to do it. And here we are, now back on our way. So I think those messages, it doesn't matter if it's a cross-country team, if it's a school, if it's a, huge corporation, it's people.
Right.
It's how you treat the people around you. How do you motivate them? Is it a positive, environment?
Yeah.
And do the people who are with you feel like they're part of it? Is there buy-in? And if you can get that, I would. I mean, I don't know. I've never run a business, but I would guess that it's probably not that different.
Well, I love learning from people like yourself who have walked the walk. You don't just talk the talk, right? You've been there. You've done that. I mean, even for you to say, you guys went through years of growing pains too, where you had to figure out, you had quick success early on with that first group kind of leading the way, and then you kind of fell off a little bit.
Yeah.
But now here you are back on top. Last year, you guys had the state championship team that you guys put together. How do you build upon that for this year now? So what are your expectations now going into this season after the great success you had last year?
Yeah, well, we have high expectations. I'd say we always have high expectations. Because that's it. I will talk a lot about the culture and the just that interpersonal, really important. But I think that, I'm also a super competitive person. So I'm like, I don't like to lose. I want to win. And I think this sport probably draws a lot of people who like that too. So we work really hard. I would say these kids work very, very hard. It's kind of grueling what they do. But so whereas we're going into this season, it was a miracle. Miracle on ice. It was like miracle on a cross-country course that we won last year, because we had like everything against us the day of the race. And even the night before, when we had our team meeting, I said, we're just going to talk as if we're like healthy, right?
Yeah.
Like in the best case scenario, if everything goes right, we have a chance. That's where we were the night before. And, but this is the beauty of being a Catholic school. We always pray together the night before, and prayer is a really important part of our team. And the kids all, for the first time, they'd never done this, so it was kind of awkward, but they did it, and they did it really well. They prayed over each other.
Wow.
Which was really cool. And they went through each of the girls who were running, and the whole team took turns like praying for them individually. And there were little aches and pains, and just really asking for God to be with them.
Yeah.
And so we went in, but the next morning, like we had 2 kids, like Rue was dealing with some little, we thought, tendinitis, but she was actually feeling okay. And then Lauren Ramey was like, something's going on. And she was in tears 30 minutes before the race.
Wow.
And I was like, do I run or do I not run or do I run? It was crazy. So all these teams are saying, well, good luck, you guys are going to do great. And I'm thinking like, yeah, right. Wait till you see what really happens. So it truly was a miracle. And that is a testament to the kids, like, wow, like, can't explain that to anyone, like to know like what they did was amazing. But also it helped that it was really hot and some of the other teams that we were up against had not such great days. So that was good. So with that behind us, I think coming into this year, like you said, it's different kids. We do bring in a really nice group of freshmen. We've lost some good runners. We lost 2 off of our varsity, but I never like to predict. I'll just say, like, I think that we're going to have a good team. And, you know, the assistant coach last year, she said, you have to stop asking me, do you think we're good? Like at the end, I'm like, do you think we're good? They'll kind of prove it as they go. And we just day by day, because you never know what happens, right? If they're healthy or what. We just hope by the end of the season. But I think with the kids we have, if they keep the culture that we want on the team and they encourage each other and work hard, I think that we'll be relevant. So it'd be awesome if we can, you know, be great on the big day, but we'll certainly be relevant.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm sure you'll be having those kids pushed week by week, you know, continue to meet the bar, push the bar and do all that stuff. And when you're talking about the team from last year, just having that moment the day before the race and praying over each other, that's a powerful moment. I got chills while you're sharing that story because I didn't hear that before. It's just really cool to hear that that's the culture within your team, that these kids are not just rooting on for the day of the race, but it's the day before praying for each other.
Always. And like we do. Every Friday we're in the chapel before our pre-race. I mean, it really is like, because these are all gifts that they've been given, right? And we're using them hopefully to glorify God, to glorify each other, to help each other, like to really raise each other to be better people. And I think that's the heart of it. And I always say to them, like at the end of the season, like every team here has trained really hard. I said, but you've trained really hard and you've asked God to help you. and that's always sort of helped us in the end because he's always faithful, right?
I think one of the chants that we used to say when we were in the basketball game, right? I'm in the student section, it would be God's on our side.
But it really is. Like, and it's been like a parent. Like we've had they have a devotion to St. Therese. They've always said that the Villa, I think forever, the Villa huddles always say like little flower in the sour, show your power. That's something that probably for 50 years they've been doing. And they do. They have this great devotion, and they really love it, and their faith is important. And even the other day, they're so cute because they love that song "Oceans." You know it, and that's what they listen to coming into the state meet. Like that's it's cool. Just quiet. Yeah. They're like really their hearts are turned to God, and they know they've done physically what they need to do. Yeah. And then it is. And we just do the best we can. Right. And if it's first place, it's first place. If it's fifth place, it's fifth place. It is what it is. But, right. So I think that's kind of just keeps it all real. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, frankly, at the school now, they just put the district and state trophies in the cabinets. And, and they say, okay, you can give some of the kids these trophies from these other meets. I'm like, they're just trophies. They just get dust on them. It's not the trophy. It's the experience. Right? And you may not remember your time in 40 years. You're not going to remember the place you finished on the team, but you remember that you had this incredible experience with these friends who are like really forever honored friends. Yeah. Who you will, like you said, you have this bond with them forever. Yeah. And I think that's the heart of it.
Man, so cool. I can only imagine being a kid on your team because you have this culture just so tight-knit and such a great group of boys and girls runners. And it's so great to have you here coaching with the team. And you mentioned an assistant coach last year. Do you have assistant coaches this year?
So we just brought one on yesterday. So great. Mackenzie Smith, who was part of she graduated in 2015, so she was part of that first Villa. Yeah. I think she just came back to town, so she's going to be working with us. How cool is that? I'm really psyched. I'm really psyched because, she knows the story of this team because she was part of the very beginning. She was part of that freshman class that came in, that 9 girls, that doubled the size of the team in my second year, and has experienced it all, so I think that's going to be very helpful for the kids. How cool. And I'm getting old, so it's nice to have a young person they can relate to a little better. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's a great addition to your staff.
Yeah,
I'm glad that
excited.
she's moved back to Erie and happy to be a part of the team. And now she
too.
can kind of show the girls the way from,
Yeah.
her back in the day, right?
Yeah, it's
so
great.
long ago.
It's great. And we had an assistant for the last 3 years who was great with the kids, and I just am really grateful for that because, the same with Mary who was here before and Mackenzie, now they can run with the girls, and it's like they can just be that sounding board, but they both are coming from the right place, and I think that Mac is going to do a great job of that too. So, yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Well, Therese, we've loved having you on the podcast. You've shared so many wonderful things and stories with us. I have one final question for you. It's a surprise one, all right?
Okay.
So, through years coaching with Villa, right, you've had experiences that between Villa and now Prep, being a Victor, being a Rambler. So the question I have for you is, what does it mean to be a Rambler? And so that's the question I posed for you as the last question for the podcast.
Yeah, so I have to say, obviously being part of Villa for all those years, and then that was like, wow, we thought this is going to be this big change. When last season started, and then all of a sudden, it was a little bit weird changing our huddle,
Yeah.
So, go Villa it took us a little while to figure out what we were going to say, and then we came with this nice roll Ramblers, and it's really fun, and it's nice, and then missing the kids in the races because I'm looking for blue.
Yeah, right.
Wait. Right, I miss them. But that quickly went away, and I have to honestly say, it is really pleasantly beyond anything I think any of us expected. I think having the boys and girls together has been great. They really have this great camaraderie. They encourage each other, and I think, I think there's just a lot of pride to be out there and to be a Rambler. And it's finally 1 year later. It's set in place now, and it's great, and we're really very proud to represent the school. And I think the nice thing is, it's just a continued tradition. It's not like we became this new school, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we are in some sense, but we bring everything of the wealth of the experience at Villa with us, and it's very much ingrained in the team. And remember, now new kids coming to school never have known what it was to be at Villa. They're Ramblers, 100%, and but it's very infused with the best of what Villa was. So I think it's great, and it's awesome.
And like you said, just being able to carry that pride of what it means to, you've said it earlier, not even the collective group is bigger than the team.
Exactly.
Whether it was the Villa team, the Prep team.
It's the same thing. It doesn't feel any different.
Correct.
Our uniforms are different and our cheer is different, but what it is, the essence of it, is exactly the same.
Right?
And I just feel like, okay, it just moved over here.
Correct.
So it's great. And like I said, at the end of the state meet last year, the girls were interviewed by this PA mile split guy, and of course that's what everyone asks about because they were Villa for so long. And he says, so what do you think in new school? And I love this video. The girls are just like, we love it. And then they said they did the chair roll Ramblers.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's awesome.
It's all good.
Well, we wish you the best of luck for this coming
so
season.
much.
Yeah, we're so excited for you.
Coming soon.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so soon. Yeah.
I know.
But we appreciate your time coming on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me. It's great. It's fun to talk to you.
Absolutely.
It's fun to reflect on these things.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get so caught up in the doing, we don't actually stop to think about hey, this is kind of neat.
Yeah. It's look at what we've done, and now it's time for the next chapter, right?
Yeah. It is. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Good. Well, thanks again,
awesome.
Therese.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks
You're
so
welcome.
much.